Good afternoon. How are you? Well, Jefferson has cooled off the weather a little bit. It's 53 degrees. We have 83% humidity, and so rain seems imminent. I hope not to get caught. And the winds are at 6 miles an hour. I thought it would be useful to consider the facts, if you will. But before I get to that, I'd like to say, if you had the same reaction I did, was it felt so good to have so many across the nation protesting and resisting. So many groups coming together and talking about the different issues that bind us all together to make a difference in America, to restore and protect and preserve the republic and our ability to vote and not have some worthless mob pretender become the dictator of America once and for all, diminishing this great experiment in democracy to a criminal enterprise by Trump. The latest, of course, is his discussion about tariffs, which is probably going to dominate the news because, after all, this is a capitalistic society. And we have been used to having a blend in that capitalism, that is, with benefits and shared rewards for the United States working together. But in recent years, only emphasized by Trump, it's become a get it for yourself, gotcha, lies are okay, anything is okay, to make the rewards you want, whether they be money or fame or power, and at everybody else's expense. And that's not acceptable. And the protests yesterday, I think, underscored the soul of America, the better soul of America than the evil that dominates the West Wing, and the people who are drawn to that to find something in the break and fast world that allows them to get ahead in a way that is unrelated to the quality of the endeavor, the justice of the endeavor, the honesty of the endeavor, the sharing of the endeavor. So I've been thinking that, the best debate is one in which it's based on reason. Now, sometimes you can come at odds to another person or entity, and they claim to be arguing from reason, and we don't believe they're lying, and we don't believe they're ridiculous. In other words, there's a cause separating us. But it's interesting when a group takes a position that surprises you because it coincides with your view. And I'm talking really about the tariffs right now. The American Enterprise Institute has a reputation for being a conservative player, if you will, in the debates about the economics and business and what's good and what's not good. So a rational rule might, however, apply if the one you're disagreeing with finds agreement in just one or maybe even a few issues. So, like I said, I'm talking about the tariffs, and this is kind of a forbidden zone for some who were always intimidated by math, and a plaything for those who are happy and content and comfortable in dealing with numbers. Now, there will be no test here, because what I'm saying at the end of the day is the revelation of a false approach to tariffs. So the American Enterprise Institute is a think tank, and reciprocal is the phrase of the day. That is, you'll hear Trump say the tariffs are reciprocal. And this is a term, and don't get bogged down in the details too much, but reciprocal is half the rate of the tariffs plus the non-tariff trade barriers. So if it's that's the way reciprocal tariffs are thought. It should not surprise you that instead of that mathematical approach, half the rate of the tariffs, Trump's view is equal to the rate of the tariffs. And what that means is that by the end of the calculation, everybody has to raise 2 to 10% in tariffs. Okay, now, this may not seem sensible, but bear with me. An example, I guess, in numbers would be, say there's 100 million imported, and suppose there's 50 million exported. The difference between those numbers, the 50%, is argued to be the tariff on the United States. And so you divide that number by the 100 million imported, and you get 50%, and you get 25 million should be the tariff. Okay, now you may have found this annoying, and I apologize, and you can go read it for yourself at www.aei.org, and it's a math journey that you can take, but at the end of the math journey, you'll see that the AEI thinks there is no foundation in either economic theory or trade law to justify this approach. Duh. And they're also of the view, if you correct the error, that is, reduce the tariffs the way this formula would suggest, it would go to 1/4 of the levels that have been broadcast by Trump. So you're with me? Now, here's the thing about being with me on this. You don't have to actually be with these numbers, because it's a mathematical setup that itself is not kosher. And if it were done correct, though not kosher, not correct itself, the tariffs would be even lower than that. So what's the answer? Well, the answer is to do it right and scrub this whole thing down and have another reset, if you will. And if not that, to reduce the tariffs for this wrong approach that would be much lower than they are presently. And AEI, American Economic Institute, has these calculations for all the nation states that are involved. And that may be more than you want to get involved in. But what is the lesson here? The lesson here is that it becomes another form of a shell game. Instead of protecting industry here with high tariffs, and then there's some winners among all the others who are suffering because the tariffs don't work for them, and they end up penalizing all of us in a tax-like structure because no one can rush in and fill the alleged gap that exists between the tariffs once raised that would promote an American business. Okay, now let's try another pass at this. Trump doesn't care. And it is possible that he left town just to negotiate. But you can't negotiate at this stage, lose trillions in your markets when those have retirement accounts and all these other accounts for their retirement losing value. And these guys say, just live through it. You can't just live through it. It doesn't work that way. People are very upset, legitimately so, because what scenario protects them when the government gives up on them? And that's what Trump did. And that makes me think that his retribution is not limited to his visible, known enemies list. It's everybody. It's the people in America. It's including some of his own. It includes our allies, nations around the world. And he does pull back from what he's prepared to do with China and Russia and so forth, which suggests to me and to others, I think, that he seeks to form a coalition with these governments and have a new world order, if you will. And it's going to be a very tough and craven order. And it's going to be more like the days of old where law didn't matter but force and power did. And that in this context, as he honors the strong men of the world, the dictators, he wishes to become one himself and to sit at that table and carve up the earth in a new way, probably sticking it to Canada and Greenland, as it gives him a porch, if you will, that puts him right across from nation states that are small and independent, and possible pickups, if you will, for his hyper-generated, self-aggrandizing imperial wishes. A man who would be a coward in a street fight has found a way to amass power to get even with the world. If you read any of the biographies of Nixon or followed him, he always felt insecure among certain people. He always felt that he was the outsider, and so he had to elbow himself past those people. Trump has a lot of that too, and it shouldn't surprise us. The kinds of people who are like Trump are an empty husk, without any soul, without empathy, without love, racing, mad to some imagined finish line at which he will stand erect, in charge, in power, doing whatever the hell he chooses to do. That's not acceptable. But what we've seen is we've seen the demonstrations. We've seen some movement on the Hill. Don't feel I can trust them yet. See some coming together in the rallies of those who have made the biggest difference. That is the groups, ACLU and other groups like that. Attorney generals from, I think it's 23 states now. This is the kind of pushback that we have, that we need. And we have some jockeying for position in elective office. And I understand that, but that's not this fight. This fight is about securing America, taking chances, fighting for what's right. And if you get elected at the end of the day, terrific. If you get elected at the end of the day, if you've done this, you should get elected. But that's not what our system has become. Our system has become a series of tricks and half lies and a kind of bag of masquerade costumes that are worn to get the unwary voter hungry for change to support the candidate of the day, Republican or Democrat. Although right now, the Republicans, they're the ones who are and should be held accountable for where we are. The Democrats, they have to get into the fight. They have to do what they're supposed to do, what they were hired to do, and they're not doing that. So that's the mix I have about the issues of the day. And so until tomorrow, if it doesn't rain today, I talk to you from my cathedral of trees, greener and greener every day. Bye-bye.